Thank you. So in the context of the overall growth that you've just seen there in terms of what Reading stations plan to accommodate, we're also aware of the wider increase in the demand and the number of trips across the whole of the network, and our need and responsibility, and in the context of our local transport plan, the need to accommodate as much of those trips in a as sustainable way as possible, while still recognising that there are clearly demands for private car use. And then this diagram shows from the bid the wide range of projects that we were looking to deliver and indeed are delivering in order to make sure that we're taking the best advantage we can and promoting the opportunity that Reading as the capital of the Thames Valley and the economy can be in terms of encouraging the growth and sustaining the growth in the economy. So some key projects outlined, bicycle hire scheme, which was launched in June last year, has 200 bicycles, 29 docking stations, branded as Ready Bike, 2 new park and ride facilities in partnership with Wokingham, delivered, or it being delivered and will be open in the summer, so one south of M4 Junction 11 at Meeroak and the other at Winnersh. We've had a whole range of cycleway corridors and other active travel improvements, so actually looking at resurfacing, better signing, lining, upgrading street lighting to low carbon LED, the white lighting, the pedestrian and cycle bridge over the Thames, which is the connecting north-south spine, connecting our two rivers. Not many people seem to know that Reading is actually on the Thames, and it is literally just to the north of the station, and that new northern interchange is literally a stone's throw from the River Thames. So by having a longer term vision in our local transport plan and our local development framework, has meant that we've had the policy context in order to you put the bids forward, and then you have a very strong planning and process behind that. We've also looked at some of the smarter choices in terms of personalised travel planning programme, some facts and figures. So part of delivery through Local Sustainable Transport Fund, we undertook both residential and business-based PTP. In terms of the residential, we had over 26,000 door knocks from our travel advisors, which were then converted into over 5,000 conversations, and half of those people who were engaged in the conversations then took up incentives that we offered in terms of trying. Perhaps an incentive was, if you hadn't cycled for a while, to actually, it might be because you didn't have a proper lock or lights, so giving sort of relatively low scale value incentives, but things that would actually make a difference to people. Also giving them opportunity for a weekly bus ticket, so they could get used to using public transport and see if that really was an option for them. In terms of employment, we had 82 events, 36 businesses focused on business parks across the wider Reading urban area. So some of those were within Reading Borough, some of them within Wokingham, some of them within West Berkshire, Arlington Business Park and Thames Valley Park, also out at IQ Winnersh, although I think it's been rebranded. And looking at how you can actually get more people to make pledges to change mode in the context of all of the growth that's happening, and trying to make sure that we actually provide opportunities for people to continue to move around. Last point on this slide is around the looking at the opportunities for advanced ticketing, working in partnership with the bus company around how we can have advanced ticketing, so looking at opportunities around the wave and pay facility, which obviously London has more recently been able to introduce, and looking at information systems for people who are travelling. So we'll shortly be launching our open data server, which is going to be information that's readily available for people to develop their own apps, taking our data feed from things like our Bluetooth journey time monitoring. We've got 28 new variable message signs that have been installed, and all of that data is being pulled into one central place in our open data server along the model of the Transport for London model, so that people can actually then extract that and use that to their own advantage. And although there's this, I could talk forever about local sustainable transport fund, because clearly £24 million does deliver quite a wide range of projects. In the context of this evening and the station and then Green Park Station, just want to touch a bit more on the pedestrian cycle bridge. So it's located directly, actually, just got Baston Road in here, and the northern interchange is literally here. So in the longer term planning, the opportunity is in place to have a direct connection through what is currently the Southern Electric site. Clearly at the moment it's an operational site and is not in our ownership, and there are no immediate plans for that redevelopment. But in terms of looking at the longer term transport planning and vision, it's important to make sure that those connections and opportunities are in place. So in October 2013, we have planning permission granted, and it will be complete this summer. The cable stay structure spanning over the Thames has a ramp towards the east, joining into the towpath on the south side, which is having some widening works undertaken to it, and steps down on the western side. And so it gradually then lands in Christchurch Meadows to the north of the River Thames and connects into the existing path network through Christchurch Meadows and onto the wider cycle network. So you've seen this slide before this evening. This is the core projects that were in our local transport plan back in 2006. And there were a range of projects that are either delivered, so got Junction 11, which was opened on time and to budget. The quality bus corridors scheme with Reading buses in terms of the colour coding of the buses, which really was a step change in the offer and getting people to notice public transport, understanding networks more readily. We've got mass rapid transit proposals tied into park and rides. We have indicative funding from the LEP through the Berkshire Local Transport Board to indicatively draw down funding for Southern and Eastern MRT networks from 2016-17. So this time next year, we should just about, with a fair wind, be looking to start those schemes on the ground. Green Park Station and Interchange, which I'll talk about a little bit more. Cow Lane Bridges was identified back then as being a bottleneck on our highway network with height and width restrictions, and you've seen the size of what's being delivered. And clearly there's Reading Station upgrade, which was a core part of our transport strategy. There's a couple of elements there that still probably subject of a completely different topic in terms of Third Thames Bridge. So watch this space in terms of the work that is progressing in working together to see what options we can come to deliver a Third Thames Bridge in the future. So focusing on the southern corridor and Green Park Station, this diagram shows the analysis that was undertaken in summary form, the need to increase the sustainable transport options on our highest growth corridor, being the southern Reading corridor, with two huge business parks located to the west side of the A33. 2003 was the point where more people came into central Reading by sustainable modes, so walking, cycling, rail, bus, than they did by private car. And whilst we year on year increased that percentage to central Reading, we are very much aware that actually that's about the town centre where most of the growth is, but actually there's still a need in particularly the southern growth corridor of actually making sure that we see what transport provision we can put in place that provides sustainable transport. And Green Park Station forms a key part of that transport strategy. So location is, this is the Reading Basingstoke line, junction 11 of the M4. It said like a huge business park with up to probably 12,000 jobs to be accommodated in that location. It definitely has the potential to have a parkway function, and Network Rail's plans for electrification clearly provide a further opportunity of what might be able to be accommodated with a train that, electric trains in the future that could run from Basingstoke into Reading, potentially all the way through to Paddington and or onto Heathrow through the new access to Heathrow to the west from Langley. In terms of the context, a little bit closer in, you've got Reading Green Park Station just here, and then this is the master plan of Green Park Village as consented. So it's a mixed-use scheme, residential, an extra care home, a one-form extra primary school, and transport interchange, car park, and also some office space as well. So whilst it's essential to progress the station, it remained in our local transport plan and in our planning documents. There was no short-term development funding available. However, Reading Borough felt it was still important to continue to explore all of the options to achieve funding to deliver what we still see as a key piece of our sustainable transport infrastructure. And so last year we managed to secure LEP funding through the devolved local majors schemes that are taken through the Berkshire Local Transport Board. So we refreshed the business case, prepared a new planning application which is due for consideration imminently. Business case is approved by Department for Transport and the LEP, and the details are currently being worked up now, ready for implementation in 16-17. An image which might look a little bit familiar in terms of the style and design, not quite on the same scale as Reading Main Station, but again, it's, all of the work that the team that I've worked with has meant that the knowledge that we've gained from Reading Station work has, I'm sure, paid dividends, and making sure that we establish what's right for the whole of Reading, and also taking into account all of that partnership approach. So key messages, I think, overall are, again, it really goes as planned, if ever. I mentioned sort of being fleet of foot and taking advantage and being flexible of opportunities that present themselves, and making sure that you have the determination to follow through. Robust business cases, as you've seen from all of the processes, are clearly key, and I'm sure will continue to be in whatever funding mechanisms come forward post-May as well. Political buy-in, our local transport plan was adopted by full council, so what it means for me as an officer is that it's really helpful to be able to say, well, actually this was taken to the whole of the council, no matter what political party, and provides us with that fundamental platform to take forward bidding opportunities. Partnership working, I think you've probably heard a lot about this evening. This couldn't have happened without the partnership working that was ongoing. And inevitably, you will end up delivering a plan B, C or D, but it definitely won't be plan A, because it's just not the way it works. Thank you.